Good afternoon, Holmes Road Church of Christ. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. I hope everything's going well for you. Just bringing a little devotional thought to you. Hope to encourage you. Hope to see you soon. Have any of you ever read a book or seen a movie, had to do a school paper, or even heard of the Monongah mining disaster? It is known for being the worst mining disaster in all of American history. It occurred in a small West Virginia community called Monongah, West Virginia, and it occurred on December 6th, 1907. So there's probably no one still alive today that remembers it, of course, but it was a long time ago, 1907. That horrible tragedy occurred when the Fairmont Coal Company's mines number 6 and 8 had an explosion at 10:28 a.m. Now, folks, this was in 1907. They didn't have all the technology that we have now. And the cause of the explosions, according to investigators, they concluded that a small spark had come from a miner while he was working, and that met with many of the open flamed lamps that they used for light when they were down in the mine. And that spark mixed with either the coal dust that was in the air or a pocket of methane gas, resulting in a huge explosion and a complete disaster. Officially speaking, there were 367 men who were down in the two mines that died that day, that got buried alive. But that number only represents the actual number of registered workers who were down in the mine at the time, that were on the books. The actual number from historians, they tell us, is well over 500. Because we got to remember, this is a different time and different era. But during that time, the miners would often, on a daily basis, they would often take their children down into the mine, their wives or brothers or any kind of relative that wanted to just come along to see the mine or wanted to help along. You know, sometimes they bring their children along so they could get more work done so then they could go home earlier. And so things to this nature. But anyways, there was far more deaths than just the 367 because of the fact that so many people were allowed to go in those mines. Historians record that from that disaster, which was on December 6th, you got to remember, the month of Christmas, and having all these men die, and it was just a horrible time of the year. Obviously, people getting ready to celebrate Christmas, and left behind were over 250 widows with no longer has a husband with them. And left behind were over 1,000 children that were instantly without a father. I mean, think about how many families and over 1,000 children woke up one morning and had a father. Life was fine, life was normal, and within an instant, they'd had no father in their life. You can only imagine the kind of pain and hurt that something like that would bring about. However, out of such horrible pain and awful tragedy, something like that Monongah mining disaster, there are many positive things that have come out from the Monongah mining disaster. For instance, that disaster led to the creation of the United States Bureau of Mines, which finally gave a governing body to ensure that the safety of all the American mines throughout the United States. And this organization is why Monongah is considered to be the worst mining disaster of all time, because since then, this organization, the United States Bureau of Mines, has greatly improved mining and the safety of mining for all the rest of time. And so that's one great benefit that came from this disaster. But another positive thing that came from the Monongah mining disaster is that each year after the disaster occurred, many people all over the nation held memorial services, remembering all those many fathers and the lives that were lost on that day. And from that Monongah mining memorial services, historians tell us those were the seedbed for which we currently, today, celebrate Father's Day. The entire United States today celebrates fathers and the role of fatherhood every year in the month of June. We give dads presents. We have his favorite foods. He gets to relax on that day. If your father's passed away, it's a time of remembrance. You look back and you think on your dad and remember his his ways. And it's a day to celebrate. It's a day of remembrance. It's a day of celebration. It's a day to thank God for fathers. And it all started from the tragedy of Monongah mining disaster. From the great loss and pain came remembrance. And eventually, years down the road, even celebration. We see the same sort of things even happening now with the 9/11 tragedies. On 9/11, 20 years ago, almost 3,000 people died in those attacks. Just an unbelievable number of people died on that one day because of a senseless attack. Today, 20 years later, we look back. We remember the sadness. We remember the anger we felt, the fear, the vulnerability we felt on that day. But we also celebrate our country. The patriotism. Many people remember the patriotic feel on that day. There was no Democrat, Republican. We were United States of Americans. And we were united on that day. We celebrate the firefighters who worked to save us, who lost their lives trying to save people. The police who worked hard to protect people. We celebrate the military and the sacrifice that they have made over the last 20 years trying to keep us safe from another terrorist attack. What was so tragic and so heart-wrenching and painful on 9/11, we look back, we remember, and eventually we celebrate. This same process is what Christianity is all about. The same process we talked about with the Monongah mining disaster, 9/11. A horrible thing happens. We remember and we eventually celebrate. And this is what Christianity is really all about. The greatest tragedy in all of human history was not 9/11. The greatest tragedy of all of human history was not the Monongah mining disaster. The greatest tragedy in all of American world history, occurred when human beings crucified their Creator. When humans could not see that the Messiah, the God Himself, was right there in their midst, and they killed Him. Yet that dark moment, that dark moment of sadness, knowing that we, as humans, killed God. My sin put Him there on the cross. When we look at that tragic, dark moment, it also produced remembrance and celebration. The night before He would go to the cross, Jesus took the elements of Israel's Passover and created His own new memorial celebration. Luke records the scene this way in Luke chapter 22, verse 19. It says, He took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Still today, each and every week, whenever we take communion, we honor His great, unflinching love for us. We remember the cost of my rescue. We remember the cost of our rescue. And we celebrate the gift of life that His sacrifice gave us. From tragedy comes times of remembrance and celebration. As Charles Wesley once said in his great hymn, Amazing love, how can it be that Thou, my God, should die for me? I hope that you will join us this Sunday as we partake of communion and as we remember and as we celebrate Jesus' sacrifice for us. I hope to see you soon, hopefully this Sunday, Holmes Road. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.